It's the Blues Rock Show with Pete Francis and Willie Witten.
Welcome to the Blues Rock Show. I'm Pete Francis, joined by Willie Witten. Today, our special guest, one of the most prolific blues rock guitarists in the UK, Danny Bryant. Danny, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I watch a lot of these interviews, so we've done some audio ones before, but I think this is my first video chance with you guys.
Yeah, great to have you on. So, Danny, you just dropped a new album, The Rage to Survive.
Yeah.
Where does that title come from?
Well, it was something that just kept going around in my head, and I kind of thought, well, that would make a good song. And then when we got the collection of songs together, I realized that was going to be the title track. I was pretty much set against not writing a kind of lockdown pandemic album, because it seemed that everybody would be doing that. And I kind of thought people maybe want some relief from it. But then everything that you write comes out in what's happening around you and in the world. So it was that. And I just constantly kept thinking of this whole scenario that it is autobiographical, but it isn't. It's about everybody, this rage to survive, to get through it. So really that's the germ of the idea.
So when you talk about that, because you listen to some of these songs, they're very varied in that there's topic to topic. But I'm going to go back to what Pete said. There certainly is an undercurrent. There's a lot of you in these songs. When people listen to it on the second or third listen, these songs are more than surface deep. Is this because of where you were in the pandemic, or is this just how you write all the time?
I think a little bit of both, to be honest with you. I've always tried to write completely honestly, and I've always tried to only write about what I know and what I believe I understand, So in other words, I've only ever really written about what's going on around me, what's going on inside of me, even what's going on with friends. But yeah, they are all personal songs. And I think it took me a long while to build up to an album like this, to kind of have the confidence to be honest about my feelings and to really open up, within the songs. Because in the past I would write a lyric and think that's too personal, or that's going to hurt someone, or and now I got to the point where I kind of think, well, that's not being true to the music.
Listening to the album, Danny, on first listen, one of the tracks that kind of grabbed me and was a little different was Invisible Me. Can you tell us the story behind that song?
Yeah. I mean, that's probably my favorite. I mean, I've always kind of been a guy, like a lot of artists, that have suffered with anxiety very badly, depression and things like that. But what really struck me, and that's been a big sort of present in my life for a number of years. But what really struck me when this happened was I was seeing a lot of people that had never been through it before going through it, so I used to do these sort of walks in the evening, in the UK. I guess it was the same in the States. You were out, like, you had your hours exercise allowance a day, and that was kind of it, And it was like, I live in a small town. It was like walking around a ghost town. And like all the kind of the songs that come out the best, that was just came home and it was on the paper within 5 minutes. It's one of those songs, and it's highly personal, but then I hope, people would relate to it.
Well, speaking of relating and just being a human and just dealing with who you are, from what I've heard, there's a man who's very seminal in your life as a musician. His name is Walter Trout.
Of course, yeah.
How did that get started? Could you explain to people how it got started and what he means? And as we talk about this, there's so much there that I think people should understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a long friendship and kind of like a dream-like story. When I was 14 or 15, we live nearby to Cambridge, and I'm still in that town today, and I was out with my mum shopping, and we saw an advert for Walter Trout playing in a venue I now play actually in Cambridge called the Junction, and we had one of his albums, and so I begged my parents to take me, and then I wrote him a letter, like a fan letter, and then and he called me, and you know, we became very, very close friends. He used to, and I mean, the weird thing about this is now I tour a lot. I realize how much time this takes up and how precious your afternoon nap is or whatever. But we used to meet, he used to always tour the UK in June, and we used to meet in hotel gardens. So my parents would sit there. I would bring my guitar. He'd go and get his guitar, and he'd give me guitar lessons. And then over the years, it's developed into this friendship. And then when he had his liver transplant in, I think it was 2014, he asked me. He said, "Look, I've got this 7-week tour in the States, and a couple of shows in Canada as well." And he said, "You know, my band needs to work. Will you come out and front it and play my songs?" So I did that, and then he's guested on albums, and really he's a second father to me. So we talk all the time, not really about music, just you know, but we chat like you and I are on Zoom or on Messenger or whatever. And all I can say is I love him dearly.
Yeah, that is super cool.
Yeah.
Kind of looking at some of the younger artists today. Who are some younger artists maybe that are grabbing your attention right now in the blues rock scene?
Well, I love Kingfish. I think he's incredible. If we're sticking with fishes, I like Samantha Fish.
Fair enough, right? We're going down that road.
Some talented fish out there in the blues rock
There's
scene.
a lot of fish in the ocean.
There's a lot of good fish out there. You know, I suppose in terms of contemporaries, in terms of age, it would be like my friends Alan and Stevie from King.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
In terms of guitar players, we're about to. Well, I say about to in March. We're doing a long tour with Eric Gales here in the UK. Just, you know, obviously Joe Bonamassa, and Walter, you know, is my number one guy. For younger people, I try and keep my finger on the pulse and see who's coming up. There's a kid in the UK called Tom Kilner who's really good. There's a band called the Mentals, which they're really good. They're a bit more proggy, but it's great music. So there's a lot of stuff around, you know.
Do you think these days, you just finished with, there's a lot of stuff around. Do you think it's harder to get to that music? Not just the pandemic, but even before that. Do you think the internet has sort of helped that? Or like, do you think people aren't going to shows as much? How do you think it would be the best way for a young person, a young artist, to get their music out there?
Yeah, I think, well, to take the first part of your question, I think both. I think it's helped it and it's hindered it, you know, because you can have a platform and you know, like you and I are talking, you know, the three of us are talking, and that can go straight out there, which couldn't have happened 25 years ago, 20 years ago. But on the other hand, that creates a lot of competition. I don't know, because when I started, you know, it was all what we would call the pub circuit in the UK. So people weren't paying a ticket to get in. They were moving the pool table and turning the soccer off on the TV. We were playing whether you liked it or not. And I mean, that taught you a hard lesson as to how to win an audience. And but equally, that scene doesn't really exist anymore because of so many licensing laws and things. So I don't know, you know, I've been in the sort of club theatre kind of scene now for the last good while, so I don't really know at very, very grassroots level how that is, but it's yeah, I think it has its plus and its minuses. I mean, it's amazing, you know, you want to learn something now, you can just go on YouTube. You don't have to buy a DVD, or in my days when I was learning, it was, you know, videotapes.
Danny, you talk about some of the venues. Do you have a dream venue that you've never played that you'd really want to play at?
Oh, I've done some of my dream ones. I think if I could play anywhere, I think I'd probably choose Red Rocks.
Really?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that just looks stunning,
So Red Rocks, and I'm gonna make a very awkward transition, but I just have to ask you this question because when I listen to you sing,
Yeah.
just the volume, and I hope that anyone who's watching this will listen to how you talk, go put on the album and listen to how you sing. There was a growl, there was an aggressiveness that belies the three of us talking right now. Where does that come from? Was there someone when you were younger where you said, hey, I want to sound like this? Because when you get in there and you dig in, people are going to be stunned hearing your talking voice and your singing voice. Where does it come from?
I don't know. I mean, I always disliked my voice. I don't now. I'm proud of how hard I've worked on it. I took singing lessons. There was a point when we started the band where I realized I really needed, for this to work, for the songs I was writing, I needed to be the singer. In terms of how it came out, I mean, I could list 100 million influences, but I think that your voice kind of comes out as you. I think it's I don't think you can change it too much. I've tried to be natural with it, and I'm a fairly big guy, so it's a fairly big, loud voice.
Do you have someone though? Who were you listening to? So let me make it just when you were young. What was one of the first voices you heard, and you thought that maybe in the back of your mind, man, that is the way to go. That is the voice. That is a great voice. I'd
probably have to come back to Walter. I mean, the thing that always struck me was that people would go mad about his guitar playing, and in those days wouldn't mention what an incredible vocalist he was. And so I would have to go back to that. And then also my parents, record collection, there was a lot of Springsteen and things like that. And I just always liked that kind of gravelly, soulful delivery.
And Danny, you mentioned Walter. What do you feel is the biggest lesson that you've learned from him?
Probably the way to treat people is I kind of think of him the same way. I've been backstage and seen how BB King's acted with people, and I think Walter's very much like that. So that really, I mean, as I said, we talk all the time, but it's very rarely about music these days. So I think to try and stay humble, stay grateful, especially, I've never felt, we had almost 2 years without touring, and then I played my first show last month, and I'll never take it for granted again.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
the new album, The Rage to Survive, is now available. Any final thoughts, Danny, before we let you go?
What's next for you?
It's just a pleasure to speak to you both and be on your show. And as I say, I'm a fan anyway. I watch the interview, so it's nice to be here myself. And shame we can't all sit in the same room, but that would mean I was. Where are you?
You got to get over to the States,
right, Danny? Here's the thing. In the future, this will happen. It's just right now, it's not the time, but it will happen. It will happen. Yeah. We will all share a same room one time and a pint. I promise.
Definitely a pint. That's it. That's English talk. I like that.
All right, Danny. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
All right, that's going to wrap up this week's edition of the Blues Rock Show. For Danny Bryant and Willie Witten, I'm Pete Francis. We'll see you next time.